proper introduction to an extraordinary woman who's a trainer, an author, business consultant. She's worked with large governmental organizations, large non-governmental organizations, small businesses, nonprofit organizations, in the science and technology, in the healthcare, and in a number of sectors. She's an award-winning business consultant. In fact, just recently, the Santa Barbara Associates named her the 2015 Woman of Distinction. So congratulations to you, Michele, on that.
I thought it was extinction, but...
Michele is an expert on what is messing up your calendar right now. She is an expert on many things. She taught organizational psychology at UCSB, and she's been teaching for UCSB and UCD extensions since the 80s in their executive development and their leadership program. She frequently facilitates organizational meetings for growth, corporate change, and for governmental agencies. And last time I ran into her, actually, it was on a plane, and we were jockeying for the best seats, and everything was going great, and then we began to talk about the project that she was doing for the Navy, and she was off on a big mission to train a lot of future leaders for the Navy and a few secret activities too, I'm sure. Michele just wants us to get the most out of living. She wants you to do that for yourself, and she wants you to do that for the people that interact with you. She doesn't want your day to be affected by how many emails you got in the morning, or clients calling you and demanding things. She wants you to be able to organize your life and be able to control much of your calendar. She's helped actually thousands of people get it done, get it right, and do fun things, like being better at their jobs, for their personal relationships. She's also been involved in conflict resolution. So she's won awards for her work with the military and in Washington at the Pentagon. She was instrumental in improving the military programs for alcohol and drug abuse prevention and control worldwide. So since she did that, I know she can help you too. She lives in Santa Barbara. She would like to work more in Santa Barbara, not less, all around the world. She worked as an organizational coach in Silicon Valley. She helped people at Apple, HP, Lockheed Martin, and she's been an executive strategic planner also. So
what haven't I done, right?
She's done a lot. She has a new book inside of her, which is going to be popping out sometime in the next year and a half or so. And your questions tonight in this interactive workshop are actually going to help her do a better book. She also co-author of Star Teams, Key Players, a book from the last millennium, actually before 2000.
It is the last millennium.
On career strategies for men and women entrepreneurs, sponsored by one of the top national magazines. And her book was a Forbes selection as well. So please welcome Michele Jackman, and she's going to talk about it.
Actually, I think we have a room full of distinguished people. I'm always embarrassed by this because all it shows is that probably I'm suffering from either temporal lobe epilepsy or some other kind of hyperactivity. And yet I'm reminded that, Albert Einstein, Mother Teresa, Leonardo da Vinci, one of my favorite people, they all had the same amount of time we have. And they had the same amount of time and did wonderful, wonderful things. So I don't want to stand out as somebody extraordinary. I think I've led an extraordinary life. I have had an out-of-body experience, which really catapulted me into more and more of my own self-management, self-realization, and all of those things. I was telling Carol that I was very young in Los Angeles. I grew up there in Hollywood in the studio world, so I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible, seeing human nature there. But I was telling her that, I really also have had these kinds of experiences with out-of-body. Has anybody else here had an out-of-body experience? Or at least I was telling you my life's... Yes? All right, so what does it do for you?
Astonishes you.
Yes.
It's a hit to the soul.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Well, and that's what I think I heard around the room here, that we only have a limited amount of time, but the limit on the time is what we perceive as the limit on time. And I was thinking of your point, Diane, about space, because to me, the three types of blindness that we have to look at are the temporal blindnesses. You may have heard about this concept of breaking through the barriers of knowing, and I'm into knowledge transfer. That's what I was actually teaching the Navy the last couple of weeks. And the whole idea of knowing and what we know and what we don't know and how we can transfer that knowledge intuitively but also emotionally to one another. So my 30-second elevator speech, by the way, is I just try to make each moment more fun than it's supposed to be. And I've been pretty lucky in my career, and I think that's why I did all these things in Silicon Valley, because there are people who like to play. I was very much involved with the New Games Foundation, and the New Games Foundation disappeared, but you know what it was? 3 rules. Play hard, play fair, nobody hurt. And in business, that's rare. That's rare. But guess what? You get your time back. Well, when we were on the plane together, and this is the story I was telling Carol, you know, I had been at the Santa Barbara Associates, and someone said, you've got to talk to Patty DeDominic. You know, it's been years since you saw her, but she's really doing marvelous things as well. And she's very excited about all the new things she's doing, and you need to talk to her about all the new things you're planning to do, now that I'm chronologically enhanced and in a whole new decade. So don't you think we end up sitting next to each other on an airplane? I just want to put in a plug for if you take time, which we're going to be talking about, and you allow visualization to occur, and you really do visualize what you want to happen next, it will happen, particularly after you've had an out-of-body experience. So I think there's some threshold there. Once you've come back, and you don't want to come back, by the way, most people tell me who've had the same experience, they don't want to come back. It seems so wonderful with the music and the light. Mine was blue light, though, not white light. And when I came back, though, and this is what's relevant tonight, I had a whole new concept of time and energy, and a whole new concept of my place in the wonderful ether that I'm surrounded by. And I also had a lot of feelings about the validity of string theory. Do you all know what string theory is? That there are these parallel universes. And if we just live in the moment, like we're doing right this minute, then we get those parallel universes. And they come in and they guide our works. And that's all that's happened to me. I just follow the bouncing ball. I never really planned any of it. I do teach business courses. And I teach people they have to have goals. But actually I teach them they have to have results. So tonight, what am I going to do? In this first half hour, which I've been allocated, I don't want to do this solely because we have a room full of people, thousands and thousands of minutes and hours and potential. And I would like to share with you and have you share with me what is it you're doing that is really saving you time, energy, and your resources. I also want you to look at this as kind of a confession as well. Like just coming here tonight, I allocated 45 minutes to get here, and it took almost an hour. And that means my sense of knowing where I am and how it's changed has really occurred, and so I want to deal with that. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 things, basically. I want to talk a little bit about what Patty said you might be interested in, getting it done with less waste of time, energy, and resources. And that means I'd like you to reflect on how you are losing time, and things that are really frustrating you. So in order to do that, I have to show you my new model, and I have to have you participate in that new model. So, does everybody have a pen or pencil? I've got packets of material that I'm going to share with you, and there is a PowerPoint, but you know, you die by PowerPoint if you're not careful.
Can you do me a favor, check in with Billy and Karen, can they,
No,
since I can't see them anymore.
If
can
anyone
they-
wants, yes, and if you want to
Okay,
come.
can you see, can you hear okay, ladies?
Okay, so
Okay, good.
if you would, take one of these packets. I think I have enough for
So
everybody.
you need a different slide on.
Can
the
you see
screen?
me all right? Yes, no, just pull the slides up, all right? There's a title slide. And I'm just going to go to, and then I'll take you through the PowerPoint. Well, that's what that is. I was trying to figure out what it was. Keep going. This was our title that we decided. Straightforward, getting rid of time robbers, the bandits that we can't see in those 11 universes that may be around us as well. All right, can everybody see this now? Remember what you said about PowerPoint? That's my assistant who does that kind of thing. All right, so we have this kind of intention, 5 core intentions that I think we all kind of wrestle with that take up our time and take up our day. So I wanted to share that model with you first. And I'm going to go through just a few slides before I do that, but I want to make sure everybody had a packet so you know where I'm going. In this packet is my PowerPoint. And you know you were talking about what to share. You have my permission to share. As Patty said, there's nothing new under the sun, except I always disagree with that. I think I'm new under the sun. If I get another sun every day, and even if it's a cloudy day, if I know there's a sun up there, it gives me a new opportunity to really explore what I'm capable of. And I'm guided by Irma Brombeck, who passed away recently. Not now, actually it's been a couple of years. But she got to heaven and said, I'm here, Lord, I've used all my gifts and I'm ready. And I love that saying, you know, that using all your gifts is when you really do qualify to get to that other side, whether you believe in whatever you believe in. And I believe I'm already there partially, so that's why I said that you and I were talking about that visualization. And what's inside of us is what we are. This body is not what I am, and especially as it deteriorates, is not what I am, for sure. And I have to take more time with it. I have to be much more patient with my body than I have been in the past, but I kind of have made peace with it, so that's what's going to work out. All right, so maybe do the next slide. That'll make everybody laugh and they'll be clear. One of my clients is the DMV. So, you know, when you were introducing me, I was thinking, boy, these people are pretty astute. Why isn't government better? Why isn't the government agencies better? If I've been doing all this work with them, I almost don't even want to show them my resume anymore, because you'd say, well, what did you do there? There's still a mess. And I think that's because that's the nature of things that we're going to be talking about. So this is my, not my real license plate, but it's kind of the theory of it. Here's what I want to do. I want to do a few slides, but then I want to take us through kind of an interactive thing. All right, and then the rest of the slides, I may not do all of them because there's too many, but what I did with the slides is I put them on this worksheet, because I have another company called usowls.com. Older, wiser, laughing all the way. Us owls. And aren't you all older, wiser, and laughing all the way? And my grandson is 5. He's older, wiser every day he wakes up. So it's an ageless, that's my new mission, is to create ageless opportunities for everyone of all generations and not to get stereotyped in these decades. We all have about 11 or 12 decades, depending on how motivated you are. And I think that's another piece of this. So it's all about staying healthy, but managing, not time, literally, because time goes on whether we're with it or not, but what time does to us and who's managing our time without our permission. That's the real key tonight, I think, for this kind of person. All right, so you're all astute time managers, and you all have distinguished careers. You know you've been able to cram in all kinds of things. And when you look at your own resumes, doesn't it shock you? It's like, how did I do all that? I was just that little girl in Hollywood. But at any rate, I'll tell that story maybe if it seems relevant later. Growing up in the Hollywood studios, and maybe I have to tell it now since you look intrigued. I shouldn't have brought it up. I'll just tell it now. My cousin did the advertising for the Academy Awards. Bob Worden was the publicist for the Academy Awards. So my cousin, when I was 16 and I worked for her, I would do the slides for Ronald Reagan's Death Valley Days. I would do the glass, because I was a chemistry major, pre-med then. And I would do the glass, you know, slides, the 2 pieces of plate glass. Yeah. And I had to turn those into the studios, and I drove down in her Fiat. She actually I just got my license. She let me drive her little Fiat sports car to the studios. And the gentleman was supposed to pay her, and she sent me, and she said, now listen, don't take anything less than $500 for this project. And they have to give you the money right on the spot, check right on the spot. So I went there, and I was not like now. I was very shy and still learning my ropes. And I went in and sat at this meeting, being very quiet, and the gentleman came in with, and this is the stereotype of the tan chest with the gold chains. I mean, you've seen some of those people. Head a little bit sparse in terms of hair, and so that probably gave him some anxiety. But he came in and he said, "What's this kid doing here?" And they said, "Well, that's Rita's cousin. She's here to pick up the check for the Reagan slides." So he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. $1,000, that's it, I'm not paying any more." Now that's when time and space stops. And for me it stopped that moment. That was the first moment I experienced this, that if I just waited, the universe would come in and help me through this moment. So my nonverbals must have communicated that I was confident. Because like she said, be confident no matter what you do. Just sit up straight and look like you know what they're talking about. And he said, "All right, $1,500, that's my final offer." So I called my cousin and said, "What happens if I got a little more? Can I keep it?" She said, "Absolutely. If you got more from that guy, you can have whatever he gave you." Now, we had to renegotiate that deal when she found out how much that check was. But that got me through my first year of UC Davis. You know, I think those are the kind of moments. And again, it's a moment when you are unprepared. You're not anticipating what's going to happen next. And you know what that's called? Youth. So I hope you stay in your youth and think about things you're not going to anticipate, and think about those unexpected adventures. Now, I became a therapist, that's true, and I was focused on alcohol and drug abuse. LA County, they sent me to Synanon, which was then a legitimate operation. And Synanon, I learned a whole different theory of managing people and being kind to them. They weren't kind to them at all, they were really holding them accountable. But at Synanon, I learned how people get addicted to their own habits and how they can't break out of that, and it's all about time and space. And so my particular therapeutic approach was rather creative, and I believed in some of the more interesting models like scream therapy. You know, the military didn't like that at first because people are running around screaming, but they stopped using alcohol and drugs, so we had a 92% success rate. Now, why were they screaming? Because they didn't know what to do in the moment, and so it's that kind of space and time. And I'm talking because I've listened to all of you, and you know that we're all kind of on video all the time. So let's do a few slides, just so that you feel like I'm covering something here, and then we're going to do the 5 intentions that I do teach, and then we're going to have a little discussion about that. How much productive time do we really have? How many of you know how much time we have every day? Let's just pull that slide in. Bring it in. Well, it's 1,440 minutes a day. Now, unfortunately, it's less time for sleep, and some of you have decided in your business you're too busy to sleep, but then what happens to your ability to sense time and space is it deteriorates. So you got to be careful about that. We definitely, the more we sleep, actually, the more creativity, the more energy is actually generated. We all know that, so I don't have to dwell on it. But most people think of it as 86,400 seconds, and they become hyperactive. I think of it as 1,440 minutes less sleep. So what are we down to if we take 8 hours of sleep off that? What do you think? You know what it ends up being? We only really have about 400 to 600 minutes a day. And people like you and I, because of our networking ability, because of the way we interact in the world and with each other, even strangers, when we meet them, we make use of every single minute that's non-productive. And because of that, it becomes a productive source. It becomes seeds that are planted and make us more productive. So when you get to this, you look at, well, how much do I really have? 400 to 600 minutes a day. But what I find with my own coaching is most of you book almost 100% of your time and then get really upset when you can't do anything with it. Now that would be nice for an attorney though, not to book 100% of your time.
Only if the client pays for it.
That's right. And of course they're not going to pay for it if they're not managing their time and energy and resources. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the energy that we need to have. I mean, I really want to hear from you. What are the 2 best ways that you could save some time? And here's the thing that I think you may have read if you know anything about time management. A little bit of time actually creates a giant chunk of time. So think about this question, because we're going to do that in a few minutes. How many minutes can you save that creates a real impact? And I do a lot of this with the military. 6 minutes a day. And if you do that twice, that's 12 minutes, right? So what is that in a 5-day week? We'll give you the weekend off. What is that? 60 minutes, right? We got 12 minutes times 5, 60 minutes. Isn't that an hour? Times 4 weeks. We won't even do 5 weeks. We'll just do 4. So isn't that 4 hours? Times 12 or 11 months. We'll give you a month off for vacation. It's a lot of time. And it's enough time to give you a half a day back. Really. And so when you break time down into those micro kind of concepts, if I save you 6 minutes a day and you save me 6 minutes a day, and we save that much time, we are actually giving people back time that they can do miraculous things. And I think all of you know this. Because if you think of a way to save 6 minutes, which we'll be discussing soon, then we can really go forward. Now let's do the next slide, just so you see. I want to cover, I want to review some principles because it'll be good for discussion. Well, here's what happens to me. I'm also a dream therapist by training years ago. And I had this dream that I wanted to think about. So I said, you know, do you program your dreams? Because see, that's it, I'm a workaholic. I program my dreams, so I sleep, but I actually work it while I'm sleeping. So I asked the question in 1985, if people are so smart, why do they act like idiots at work? Did that tell you how my projects were going? And this was in the Silicon Valley. The same year that Scott Adams wrote Dilbert, so he kind of tapped into that. All men, you know, we all talk about all men are created rationally, and he said all men are idiots. So Scott got very rich, and I'm still working on it, right? But my point is that I said, if people are like this, why do they act like fools at work? Why don't they do things that actually work for them instead of against them in their relationships with others? And so I had this dream about crash landing in a silver glider. And then I landed and I was in a Roadrunner cartoon. And then I went down this highway and I saw pyramids of stones. And the stones had hieroglyphics. I studied chemistry, I studied political science, I studied a lot of things, languages. And so all of them were like different symbols and hieroglyphics. Dreams are very interesting. And then I saw one stone that I could read and it said, whoa, on one side. And I turned the stone over and it said, whoopee. And that was born that day, the ratio of whoopee to woe. Now, for you and for me, if we're going to get more done with less waste of time, energy, and resources that we have to acknowledge the woe. That's all I think it meant. And go ahead, let's bring that slide in. There it is, bring it in, all the way. We have to acknowledge our woe, and then what happens is, if we cancel it out, keep going, because this is going to be the slide that's really instrumental for part one here. The ratio of whoopee to woe is what I came up with in that dream. I wrote in my journal, woe, and then I turned the stone over and said whoopee, and I went, oh my gosh, that's it. It's the ratio of whoopee to woe. So the more woe we have, the more whoopee we need to make. Now, where does whoopee come from? Shakespeare. Shakespeare sees a man whipping his slave and says, don't give him a whipping, give him a whooping. First motivational theory, and that's what Maslow kind of surfed on, was the idea of Shakespeare, that we need to motivate people toward their highest calling, not try to control them through their weakness. So I got really excited, and then, look at this, those of you who are mathematically oriented, if I cancel out the woe, which is worry, obstacles, excuses that waste a lot of our time in our brain, in our mind, and if I get rid of overload, conflict, change, ambiguity, I focus on those things, then guess what happens? Go ahead. It equals hope. It equals hope. So as a whoopee attitude that we construct approaches infinity, you know which way woe goes? Towards zero. Who's my mathematician in here? Well, just remember this. That's really the essence of everything I'm going to say tonight, because if we acknowledge the woe that's coming at us in time, then we can really facilitate a much better choice about the use of our time, the use of our resources, and we can leverage it. And you can see the words in whoopee. Can you see some words there? What words do you see? Let's see if your brains are working tonight. You see who? Who we are. If you flip who around, what word is it? How? You see that? How we work? Yes, hope. And you see PEE, don't be afraid. I think if we hold on to toxic stuff in our brains and we don't let go of it, it's going to eat us up with more woe. And do you see the first and last letter? You can't make whoopee alone. Can't make whoopee alone. You need others like the people in this room to actually take your attitude to the highest level and save you time, energy, and resources. So I'll be just chatting about that in a moment.
And
Okay, let's do the
jump
next
through
slide.
hoops to get there from here?
Oh, whoops. Did you see whoops?
No, you have hoops.
Whoops in there too. Yes, I have whoops, which I've taught my grandchildren. When they make a mistake, they just go, it's a whoops. It's a whoops. And then hoops, you've got to go through hoops if you work in government. Okay, let's do the next slide. I'm not going to do all of them, remember. All right, there it is. Let's see the brain. Keep going. This slide, just keep going. There it is. So, woe is in the front here, our frontal lobe, our judgment. And whoopee, keep going with that slide. Keep going. There it is. It's in the back. Did you know? Everybody take your hand and just go, hey. You know, it's Italian. I'm Italian-American. Hey. They never hit us anywhere but on our head. We sneak up behind you, Italian grandmothers and aunts and uncles, and they go, hey, what are you thinking? What's the big idea? So, that is kind of the essence of the first part of this. If you are letting your woe take you down, you will lose hours and hours and hours of time. But if you acknowledge it like, I can't stand all these emails. I can't deal with all this voicemail. I can't, it's running my life instead of my running its life. I have to deal with interruptions. I have to do more with that. So let's see the next slide. How am I doing? I still have 9 more minutes, right?
Yeah, and their power went out, so I just FaceTimed her, so now we're FaceTime.
Okay, so now we're going to look at what's on our plate, just for a moment. What's on our plate? Keep going. Please bring that whole slide in. There's a guy there. There's a guy there. I'm sorry about the sound. I thought I took it out. So if you look at what's on your plate, and you look at time and getting more done with less waste of time, energy, resources, I like to do this when I teach this, and this is why I brought it. I look at what are my routines. What are my routines? The daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, and how can I get some more time from that? Because I have robbers that are taking my time in those routines. And you know what they are. Looking for car keys. Looking for things. trying to find answers to questions. Don't those eat up time? Those are your routines. Don't you have to pay your bills or check to see if they're paid? And boy, do you have a good life now. You know, you don't have to do all that stuff anymore, but what are you going to do with all that time? Well, he's going to move over to innovation. He's going to create something new, probably. And then down here, this eats up tons of time, doesn't it? Problems and challenges. Doesn't that eat up lots of our time? And then there's this other side that I think that you are instrumental in, Patty, and that is the career job competency. What do I need to do to keep growing myself, testing my limits, looking at what I'm not able to do, and build on my strengths? And I'm very involved with Gallup and using their tools to kind of look at what are your 5 strengths. You have many strengths, but the top 5 decide whether or not you're happy. I don't know how many of you have taken Strength Finder 2.0, but it's online and it's a wonderful tool beyond the old personality tools. All right, let's do the next piece. Well, for the routines, automate or streamline them, you know, or get somebody else to do them for you. For the problems, what are the causes of these common problems you're having? You know, and I think we have to look very intuitively at ourselves to see why is that happening. Innovate, innovate, innovate. Get things done faster by working smarter. You've heard that. That's a cliche. But what does that really mean, smarter? That actually means don't think you know what you're doing. Ask what you think you could be doing and how you could do it better. And I always ask, who else could do this besides me? Maybe I don't even need to do it.
Yeah.
That's the big one. I don't need to do this. And I think the fear of not letting go of things. Actually, my grandson sings Let It Go because Frozen is the best movie that's been made in recent times. So if we let it go, we can invest our free time in things like stress management and the stress that time brings on. So let's just do a couple of twists here. And I'm watching that clock. Actually, I can see it too. So what could you really be doing? What are you doing? What's happening to your life? And you're all successful. But you know success, I like that quote, I can't remember who said it, but he said success is just that you haven't failed yet. You know, so be careful because if you keep succeeding, you might have missed a failure that could have been very instructive to you and maybe helped you grow and learn. So what are you doing now that really you don't have to do and you could be doing something else? How about saving small increments of time, like 6 minutes, which I'll talk about in a moment, and then get those chunks, I already said that. How about investing, keep going, do a quality job, and focus on preventive maintenance of yourself. And see, I'm looking at faces here, but I'd love to know in a few minutes what you think that is. And then let's keep going to another thing. Eliminate time bandits, who we're going to meet in a moment. All right, let's keep going, because I'm almost through with this part. So, when you look at capturing time and getting it back from those time robbers, and time robbers can be children, can be elder parents, it can be friends who have problems and you've got to reach out to them. I lost both my sisters the last 2 years and that was my personal commitment. They came first, so forget those books for a while. The books aren't going to go away. They're going to still be in my head and heart for a long time. And I have to look at, well, what really has to be done? And maybe there's things that don't have to be done. A lot of us who are very successful are obsessive compulsive about keeping busy every single minute, not taking time for a nap, a walk, a breather, a space to just inhabit with other people. And what hoops can be simplified or eliminated? Now, when I deal with business, we really talk about this. How do we get through those hoops? How do we eliminate all that red tape and make everything flow a lot easier? Profoundly simple instead of profoundly complex. And so who else could help me? And are there role charts in place? A lot of you are business owners and business people. And the thing that keeps me employed is people do not have an active discussion about who's consulted, who's informed, who do I need to talk to about this, who do I need to inform before or after, and who approves things. We don't do the role clarification, so a lot of people waste our time trying to call us and clarify that, and sometimes they're not very assertive, and they don't know how to ask us, well, what is it that I'm allowed to do? What's my authority? What's my capability to do this on my own? So delegating is what this is about, but I find many people have shared roles, and they don't say, well, who's the final decider? I've been married 48 years. The secret is, he's not the same man, I'm not the same woman. We've changed a lot. But I know what FD is all about. And I think final decider is something we negotiate. And that really makes the relationship, I think, healthy. And it's usually pretty rational, who's FD. Because I don't have time to have conflict and craziness and drama. In fact, I brought my machine, I better demonstrate that to you. This helps me a lot with time. Where did I put that report that I have to have right now? Where is that coffee cup? I put it on the roof. Oh my God, I was in the beta brainwave. Don't you love this? How about this? You make a mistake, you make a wrong turn. Oh, you might meet somebody. I was once doing a stress management workshop out here, and I took my purse and I thought, oh no, I'm in traffic again. I better put my lipstick on because I'm not into makeup that much. And so I thought, I better do it before I speak. And I put it on, except it wasn't lipstick, it was a black magic marker. So I stopped at Omar's gas station, it used to be on Upper State, right there by the freeway. And I jumped out the car and said, oh, look what I've done. He goes, very different, very beautiful. So these stories tell you, though, that each moment is more fun than it really can be. If you can just have the attitude of doing that. And this little machine is very helpful in my seminars. You know, it's letting yourself be human again is really what that's about. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about creating a harmonious relationship with time, which means if you're disharmonizing right now, that's maybe not a word, I'm still a little bit of jet lag here, but if you don't have a harmonious or a discontinuous harmonious relationship with time, it's time to do it. Because then you find out it is truly infinite. Time is infinite. And you do have lots of time to really get things done and to get them right. And that will be kind of what we'll talk about. So, my assistant, you know, I'm sorry. I thought I tested this and took out all these animations. So let's look at the first principle. I want to go through the principles and then I'm going to pretty much stop because the time robbers are in here and I want to have a discussion with you. Prioritization. How many of you are really good at that? Saying, that was actually Eisenhower who really made that very popular. He said after World War II, what's important and what's urgent. And those are two different things. So I hope you haven't forgotten that message of what's important and what's urgent. I find still I have to stop myself. I bite my tongue and I stop myself when I think everything's urgent. But if I negotiate and say, wait a minute, I don't have to do this right now. I could do it later. I could do it at 2 o'clock. I could do it tomorrow. When I negotiate with myself through some really healthy self-talk, which I call whoopee attitude, and how do I get there? I say, interesting, interesting. You know that suspends judgment in the brain. Does everybody know that? If you still have children, whether they're young or adult, and they say things to you that are shocking, you just say, interesting. Or, what an enchanting error. Enchanting is another thing I learned in England that you could say. But interesting suspends judgment, and then your brain will take you to a place where you have an answer. So that's good. That's all you have to say is interesting. But prioritization is about looking at, do I really have to do this now? Do I really have to work on this now? So why don't you bring that whole slide in? Is this urgent or important? Will there be a money or time loss if I really do if I don't do something for others? Will there be a serious problem? And I usually answer this question, no, no, no. Nothing bad's going to happen. But there's this idea, and once you get older, you catastrophize things, you know? You say, that's a catastrophe, it's going to be horrible. And how many of you have done that? I mean, am I talking here to the choir that knows that we think the whole world will blow up if we don't do certain things? So that's part of it. And that's principle 1. But what's principle 2? This is after years of thinking about time management. If everything's a high priority, there are no priorities, right? So then how do I do it? I don't know how you do it, but I do pairwise comparison. I learned that technique in engineering studies during that total quality movement when I studied with Dr. Deming. You know, you remember the 80-year-old Dr. Deming? Quality, total quality management, and total quality leadership. Well, pairwise comparison helps me really understand my real values, because if you just look at a list of things to do, you will cheat. Your brain will tell you you must do this, or you have some guilt, you know, you have to do that, I have to do this. But if you do pairwise, what happens is your mind says, no, this is more important than that. And they're all hot. They all have to be done. Like getting my Easter cards out to my Italian relatives, otherwise I'll be in real trouble. Because they'll waste my time. They'll call me and tell me how upset they are with me. So that's at least 6 minutes.
So Michele, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So give us another example of pairwise. So in other words, what's more important to get the Easter cards out right now, or to return these 6 phone calls, or just return that 1 phone call and get those 2 cards out, and then the others can get.
See, and that's a good question, because what I do is pick the quickies, the things I can get off my plate, the things I don't want to do right away. So for me, the cards, getting those out is going to be critical. But unpacking my suitcase would also be helpful.
Okay, But that's definitely not urgent.
No,
Unpacking
not
is
urgent, not
But
urgent.
if you've got your two most important clients,
Well, in
messages
pairwise,
from them-
I think pairwise, and I don't have time to teach you the whole technique, but how I teach it in my seminars is I tell people, well, you have, and I've done this with boards of supervisors, what's more important? Dealing with gangs, fixing the roads, having a health plan for people in the community, or the SPCA, negotiating with them. I make them list their priorities and then they pairwise which one's most important, once you have a list of criteria. But you have to have the criteria. And for me right now, it's unpacking my suitcase, because that's going to give me mental time. Do you know this about, when I wrote my book, I actually caught myself going into my closet and reorganizing my closet. Now that's because it's symbolic of the space I needed to get those words out of my brain. And cleaning my closet got done too. Was that urgent? No. But it was important to the urgency of finishing that book, the final chapter. And I think all of you can relate to that.
I have to tell you, I understand that a lot. I sometimes, if I'm procrastinating about something, like, I don't like to make sales calls.
Right.
I clean the toilet before I make sales calls.
Well, I can tell you what that means, but I think everybody gets it. I know. We'll all catch ourselves. Now, don't be hard on yourselves, though, because what that does is acknowledge the woe. And then you can get to the other side, if you can laugh about it and say, well, I'm going to really scrub this toilet, and then I'm going to make that sales call. Okay, well, let's look at this now. Team approach. The reason you need a team approach is I found another pair of eyes or another ear that you can tell somebody, I've got these priorities. They will ask you the right questions or they'll guide you. Remember, you can't make whoopee alone? And I found that I can do that for people and they can do it for me. What's the highest priority? And of course, your values play a big role here. My family is the number one priority for me. It's never interfered with my career. My mother died when I was 2, actually, of a hole in her heart. And I was raised by Holocaust survivors. And my father taught his 3 daughters, it was like a bad version of The Sound of Music. My father taught us, we can have all 3 wishes. We can be married, we can have children, we can have a career. We can have all 3, as long as we have ourself being the key in that whole scenario of the 3 wishes. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? I was lucky, I got that. From the Holocaust survivors, they said to me, it's all a joke, so you better start laughing. Because it's all absurd and all painful, but it gets you past the pain. So I think that was all very helpful stuff too. A team approach got me through my childhood and through everything. I actually played team tennis, so I didn't even want to do singles then. So let's bring this one in. This is principle 3. There's only 6 of them, don't worry. Equal amounts of work do not result in equal amounts of satisfaction, Patty. That's what you were saying. Equal amounts of work might be very dissatisfying. So you want to pick the things you don't like to do and get those off your plate. That's what I learned. It does work that way. Get that stuff out of the way so you can really have that time to reflect and look at what you've been doing. Okay, and this last thing, 2 more. The more you try to do, the more you want to do, or you think you have to do. How many of you are guilty of that one? Yeah, I thought we'd have a quorum in here. Because you're all successful people like I am, considered successful. Well, this is dangerous because I think if we do less, we're going to get more energy. And I think less is more. I've been teaching that for a number of years now. And what's amazing is you hear my resume and I go, how did I do all that? Because I was doing less more effectively. And I think that kind of segued me into other things and other relationships that I was able to deal with. All right, next slide, principle 5. Principle 5, excessive activity creates the need for more systems. Don't you have to have a system? And you're all nodding. This might be the most important one for tonight and what I've heard about you. Systems, checklists, and increases stress, though, if you have too much excessive activity. So I think reducing activity actually gives you more mental acuity, and I think we can all relate to that. And especially you, I bet you're hitting some of your most creative moments because your body's saying, you're stuck here like a tree in the ground, aren't you? And you can do a lot with
I
that.
start at 1 or 1:30 in the morning. I am sparked. My brain sparks me. I
Yes.
start to write that now.
Yeah, and you can record that thanks to the technology that some of these people in this room developed. We have just unlimited capability to leverage our energy. All right, so let's go to this next thing. How to apply this and real time per day that's productive. The goal is to do less with more and quit doing things that no longer are needed or make sense. So on that note, I would like us to just depart from PowerPoint because you have the whole thing. I couldn't give it up. I couldn't cut it. I kept saying, no, you need that, you need that. But what I put in here was a worksheet. If you look at this, if you look in your packet, you will see an owl from my US Owls. All right? And so I think I still have some time, and then we have discussion time, right? That's the first half hour.
Yep.
And I'm saving a few minutes here, because I don't want to just talk. You'll see that my goal, the presentation, see the owl sheet? All right. It says, understanding who and what is robbing us of our much-needed time. And the walk-away here is new habits, rituals, or future citizen arrests. You know what a citizen arrest is? You have a time robber, and you arrest that time robber. And the time robbers are going to be on the back of this sheet, so don't worry, they're there somewhere. But the first question I would like you to just turn to the person sitting next to you or around you and ask, what are you already doing to keep control and prevent the time robbers on your time? And here's what I'd like you to do. List 2 ways, and you don't have to write it, if you want to just talk it, that's fine. But list 2 ways that you're saving 6 minutes a day. All right, that's under question 1? Okay, so find a partner or connect up with somebody, and let's try to do that. Those who are out in the audience, you know, this is what the question is. What are you already doing? Okay, and those 2 on the steps over there, you're fine. That gives you a lot of free time. What are you doing? How are you saving 6 minutes a day? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that. Go.